We join Angel just as he is gazing into the eyes of Sauron. Warren sees the villain disappear, replaced with a trio of horrifying monsters. He manages to dodge the first, but is clipped by the second and notices that though it hit his wing, he didn't feel anything. Testing out a theory, he flies straight at the last one and sees that he goes right through them, seeing that they aren't actually there. He wonders if even Sauron was real, and decides to see what happens if he were to fly straight into one of the creatures. Flying through it again, he feels ecstatic for figuring the situation out when a voice tells him his triumph won't last. He then sees Sauron again and calls him out as a masked villain, but Sauron refutes the claim while explaining how he came to be and how Carl Lycos drained the energy of Alex Summers. Sauron then baits Angel into following him into the city when he is struck by a blast from the newly arrived Cyclops, and Jean moves in to telekinetically attack him. Sauron, though, hearing her, is prepared and releases a hypnotic light at her, and when she turns to her teammates, sees them replaced with monstrous versions of themselves, and Beast realizes what happened. Sauron gloats of his strength and powers when Angel blindsides him with a punch. Unimpressed, he merely grabs the X-Man with his clawed feet, and Beast appears and throws a powerful punch of his own. He taunts Beast, though, when Angel yells for Iceman to attack at that moment, and Bobby unleashes a blast of ice, freezing Sauron's wing. Reminded of the cold, he becomes angry and breaks the ice off and destroys Bobby's ice slide. Jean catches Bobby and Angel goes after the villain, while back at Lycos' office, a phone begins ringing. Sauron, trying to prove his superiority, begins to outmaneuver Angel while the phone begins to awaken Alex. The transformed Lycos notices at that moment that he's changing back and that he'll fall to his death as someone hangs up the phone. Angel flies under the bridge where he finds Lycos as he is mid-transformation and grabs the winged mutant so that he can hypnotize him to help him escape. Angel emerges from under the tunnel, and the teens see him carry away the humanized Lycos, who thinks of when Sauron will return and that they'll all die. He has Warren return him to his office and forget everything that happened when he hears someone moving in the therapy room and enters to find Tanya. She tells him that she had to see him as she had a terrible feeling something happened to him. While outside, the X-Men arrive to see that Lycos is still treating Alex and go inside to take him home, while Scott tells Jean that Angel was most likely under Sauron's control. Heading inside, they see Alex thanking Lycos as he tells Tanya that he looks forward to seeing Alex again soon. Tanya tells Carl that she's proud of him and that she would love to be his wife, but he doesn't believe that her father would allow it when Anderson shows up reciprocating what Carl believes. Tanya tells her father that she's of age and can marry Lycos if she wants, but he denies her, saying that he wants more money first, which hurts her, and Anderson forces her to go back to Scarsdale with him. The X-Men stand there watching as they leave when Alex thanks Carl again and asks for his bill. Lycos says he'll send it while deciding to use the mutants to further his goals. Returning home, they find Warren as Lorna tells them that he flew in and just sat there, unmoving. Bobby mentions Lycos helping him when Warren reacts to the name and tries to flee, but Hank knocks him out. They go to take him to Carl when they give Alex and Lorna some papers on the doctor from Xavier to go over. Later, while going over the notes, Lycos arrives at the home, and Lorna finds that Carl is considered a non-mutant variant when she looks at Alex and finds him asleep and thinks of her feelings for him when she hears a noise behind her and thinks it might be Warren. However, the doctor grabs her and begins taking her energy, transforming back into Sauron. Finished, Sauron flies away and goes to Anderson and Tanya's house, where he is prepared to kill the father. However, Anderson recognizes the voice as Lycos's when Beast appears and kicks the villain's head. The X-Men had gone there due to the empty doctor's office when Sauron realizes how evil he's truly been and how Tanya would be ashamed. He flies back out the window when they ask Tanya where he could be going. She claims to not know, but truly does and decides to find him before anyone else. Flying over the oceans, Sauron is desperate to reach Tierra del Fuego when he begins changing back. He manages to reach his father's cabin where it all began and is committed to ending his life so that he can't endanger anyone. The next day, though, as he is feeling weaker, he hears the voice of Tanya calling for him. She sees him, and as she's running to him, he begins to feel the need to drain her energy but catches himself. Running away, she screams for him to watch for the cliff, but he goes over when she is prevented from following by a wall of ice. Jean, holding the wall mentally, wishes that she had just shown them the way, as they might have been able to save Lycos, while Scott believes that the good in the man had won out. We join Warren as he is being assaulted by a flock of pterodactyls. Trying to outmaneuver the creatures, he ends up taking a glancing blow which sends him plummeting towards the earth. He fights against the urge to black out, knowing that lives depend on him. He recalls being awakened by Alex and Lorna, who tell Warren that the others went to see Lycos, and he tells them to stay as he knows that Lycos is Sauron. He arrived at the office only to be assaulted by Anderson, who realizes that Angel isn't Sauron and despairs of his daughter's whereabouts. Warren finds evidence that leads him to Tierra del Fuego, where he finds Tanya and learns of Lycos' fate and that the X-Men are looking for the body. He headed into the chasm when he was assaulted by the pterodactyls. Reaching the bottom, he feels warm air and instinctively flaps his wings to save himself, but is too slow and crashes into a tree, then the ground. Later, he is found by a strange creature who reports to his master that he's found Warren. An old man in an exoskeleton appears and tells the creature called Amphibious that Angel is dead and that he must have entered the place the same way he did. Amphibious wants to leave the corpse, but the older man tells him to bring it as it might be useful. Far away, the X-Men are being attacked by a T-Rex when it destroys the ice slide Jean and Bobby are on, and Cyclops moves in and unleashes a blast of optic energy. He hits it in the mouth, but when he goes to follow up, is grabbed and thrown back towards the others. In a tree crouches Khazar, confirming that they are in the Savage Land. Khazar points at them, telling them to be quiet when Iceman freezes his hand. Angered, he breaks the ice across Bobby's head, prompting Beast to swing at the Jungle Man in his friend's defense, but is easily knocked back. Before he can get back up though, Zabu appears and holds him down when Khazar runs into the jungle to take care of something. The X-Men follow and see him watching a group of swamp people as they carry off a captured member of the Water Tribe. Leaping down, he assaults the kidnappers, demanding to know what they're doing with their victims when one of the oddly dressed men dares him to look into his eyes. Not afraid of the man, Khazar does and feels his head spinning as the man declares that his creator told him that he would win. Seizing the opportunity, the men attack when Cyclops tells the others that Khazar's fight is now theirs. Leading them into battle, they begin to attack the indigenous people. As the X-Men fight, the mysterious man has Angel placed in a cryogenic chamber, having detected a very faint life sign from him. He wonders as to whether the youngster can be brought back from the very brink of life or not. The others around him are confident though, since the man was able to transform them from swamp people into mutants. They see Warren's eyes flicker, then open, as he awakens to the mutants praising the man as the ruler of the Savage Land. Just then, Equilibrius staggers into the room from his fight with the X-Men, looking defeated. Admitting defeat, Equilibrius describes the attackers, and the old man recognizes them as the X-Men, making Warren suspicious. Claiming innocence, he claims to be working against a murderous Khazar, and Warren, in payment for his life, is willing to help even against the X-Men. Meanwhile, back with the team, they ponder why the Jungle Man lets one of the swamp people escape. Ignoring their questions, he heads onward with them following when he tells them that he feels there is much at stake with the fighting as he begins to hear music from a flute and warns them of rumors of the Piper and how death follows. Just then, a giant water creature appears and Iceman tries to freeze it, but it merely dives back into the hot springs it came from and melts the ice. Cyclops orders the team to defend themselves as Beast notices Khazar and Zabu running away from them. Not far away, the Piper plays when he is grabbed and pulled up by Khazar, who knocks the Savage Land mutant out. The monster stops attacking and Beast realizes what Khazar did with the Piper. Back with Warren, he asks the old man if he's like Professor Xavier and tells him that he searches out mutants in the Savage Land and teaches them how to use their powers. He explains the identity and powers behind Gaza, Amphibious, Lupo, and Brainchild, with only Piper missing. Warren, still wanting to pay the creator back for saving him, leaves to try to call off the X-Men's attack peacefully. After he leaves, the man smiles and thinks of how the delay will allow him to rule the planet, as he tells Amphibious that Angel has never seen him before outside his distinctive costume, as he walks to a closet and pulls out the helmet of Magneto. We see Magneto as he is gloating over his deception of Angel, who is going to stop the X-Men. He then returns to creating his next mutant, which he believes will be his ultimate creation. Back with Angel, he finds the X-Men and tells Kazar not to fight him. However, they get suspicious when they see his new costume and remember that he should be back in Westchester unconscious. Impatient though, Kazar breaks a tree and swings it at Warren, knocking him down, and assaults him when he is told to stop. The others get close and confirm that it really is Warren, and the Jungle Man loses interest and heads off. Angel tries telling him to stop, but is ignored and hopes that the creator will take care of him. Iceman wants to know how he got there, and Angel explains everything that happened up to when he was picked up by the creator and how he was brought back from the brink of death. He also tells of how he's like Xavier, looking to simply help mutants. Beast suggests they could stop Kazar, but he's too far away when they see someone by the boulders. Gaza, the blind bruiser, pops out and decks the Jungle Man. Beast and Iceman move to save him when Amphibious appears and attacks Hank from behind. He praises Angel for delaying the heroes, and they are as stunned as he is as to what is happening. Amphibious orders many of the swamp people to kill the enemies, and Kazar rushes forward to attack, while Cyclops instructs Beast to help him so that he can clear a path with an optic blast. Kazar insists that he doesn't need help as Beast joins him, and together they tear into their enemies. Barbarous then moves in to deal with Beast, but he quickly bounces back, binds two of his forearms and punches him in the face. Warren, though, is distraught at being tricked by the man who saved him and vows to do anything to stop him. Angel returns to the hideout to find it empty when he hears voices and overhears both Magneto and Brainchild discussing how they are working together to create more mutants. Bursting into the room, Angel reveals that he heard the truth, and Magneto reveals who he really is to the X-Man. Warren is shocked as Magneto explains how after his fight with them and the Avengers, he plunged into the sea and used his powers to burrow himself into the earth, where he emerged into underground tunnels and eventually the Savage Land. Determined to rule the Savage Land, he points at a glowing machine, which Warren refuses to believe its contents. Back with the X-Men, Kazar thanks Beast for his help as he urges them all to move in to infiltrate the fortress. Iceman notices though that it might be a trap due to the quiet, but Cyclops decides to simply blast an opening in the wall. On the other side, they see Lupo, who sends a contingent of wolves toward the two heroes. Reacting quickly, Kazar summons Zabu to fight, and when the wolves see the saber-toothed tiger, they flee, allowing the heroes to progress. Inside, they encounter no resistance, and the Jungle Man urges them forward, claiming there is much at stake. When asked how he knows, he replies that he isn't sure. As they break down the main door, Amphibious asks Brainchild how they can stop them, and he instructs the Frogman to strike at a specific stone on a column to defeat the enemy as the X-Men see him spring into action. Hitting the instructed spot, the column begins falling, and Iceman can't form a shield in time, leaving Jean to catch the falling rubble. Moving quick, Beast catches Amphibious, while Brainchild throws a hammer, but it is destroyed in midair by Cyclops. Beast threatens to harm Amphibious unless he directs them to the Creator, and confident that his master is strong enough to defeat the X-Men, does so. Cyclops begins putting the pieces together and realizes that only Magneto could be behind the evil mutants when the Master of Magnetism steps out from a set of doors. Following him, they find Angel standing enthralled next to Magneto as he introduces his newest mutant that he's created, Lorelei, as she is emitting a mysterious noise. Lorelei asks if she can stop creating the noise, and Magneto tells her yes, saying that the X-Men are enthralled like Angel, when Jean points out that she wasn't affected and will stop him. Magneto, though, knows the odds are against her and invites her to join him, but she refuses as she lifts a table, causing him to scoff at her. He merely destroys the table with a pair of guns, and thinking quick, Jean grabs a torch to use on Magneto, but he uses a jetpack to quickly dodge the flames as she tries to use others, but finds herself getting weaker when she gets an idea. Magneto tells her that the only reason she's still alive is because the metal parts attached to him are arresting his powers. Just then, Cyclops' beam destroys the gun in his hand as Jean lifted his visor to release them, which also allows her to destroy the machine. Lorelei then begins to feel as though she's waking up as Magneto realizes that her effects will wear off the teens and tries to throw metallic debris at them, but it fails and Cyclops awakens. Defeated, he doesn't move as the machine crumbles onto him and they quickly evacuate the fortress with Magneto beaten once again. The artificial mutants then begin to transform back to normal, and Khazar feels bad as he doesn't see how anyone would want to lose their powers when the X-Men say they wouldn't mind it at all. We see a man in a costume called Sunfire as he stands atop a building looking down with disdain upon the people. At the X-Mansion, Beast reports that Cerebro has detected a new mutant located in Manhattan and that he's very powerful. Sunfire looks upon the crowd at the United Nations Plaza as a statesman from Japan, Mr. Yoshida, dedicates a statue to the youth of the world. Sunfire, though, knows of Mr. Yoshida, who upon finishing the dedication begins talking to the people themselves when he hears himself be called a traitor. Sunfire, flying through the air, destroys the statue with a beam of heat, causing the crowd to panic. Bobby then appears, freezing Sunfire, while Beast is hoping that the event will help boost their reputation. Beast leaps up and grapples with Sunfire, who manages to free an arm and blasts Hank with the same force that destroyed the statue. Warren swoops in to save his teammate and catches him while Iceman is instructed to hold Sunfire off for a moment. Bobby throws a few ice saucers, which anger Sunfire as he feels that they aren't taking the fight serious. As Angel asks why he destroyed the statue, Sunfire is forced to leave due to the police's warning shots and even outflies Warren. The teens return home to find Jean and Scott, who are worried, when Angel tells them that they were blamed for the incident, and Jean checks Hank to find him horribly sunburned and benches him for the next outing. Meanwhile, blocks away, Sunfire is praised by his uncle, but feels that what he did was wrong when the uncle reminds him of the bombs from Hiroshima and how they disabled Sunfire's mother. Of how his mother died the night he was born, and his uncle taking him to the ruins of Hiroshima and upon having him hold the burnt soil, unlocked his mutant abilities. Then how by merely pointing his hand, he unleashes the fires of the sun itself. He is then trained in the use of his powers and given the costume, making him into Sunfire as he learns to fly with his abilities and becomes ready to face his enemies. Meanwhile, the X-Men are searching for Sunfire when Cyclops detects a strong signal from below. They see that it's coming from a diplomatic vehicle, which worries them, and have Angel follow it at a discreet distance while keeping mental contact. As the car reaches JFK Airport, Warren recognizes the men as Saburo Yoshida, his brother, and his son Shiro Yoshida, when he loses sight of them in the crowd and misses which plane they boarded. However, they head to the nation's capital, as Warren recalls reading that the Yoshidas are due there for a speech before Congress, while Scott tries to think of the fallout of an international incident. Elsewhere, Shiro's uncle eggs his nephew on to fight, as Shiro is determined to make people fear the symbol of Japan again. Upon hearing this, Shiro's father smacks him, telling him that he should let the past go, but Shiro, convinced of his power, refuses. Later, inside the state capital, Jean sees the Yoshidas and wants to follow them, but Scott chooses to wait until Sunfire reveals himself. At that moment, Shiro's father finds him, and believing that what he's doing is best for his country, knocks his father back, and his uncle tells him he will handle him. Rising above the capital, Sunfire believes his father to be merely confused and prepares to send a message to America by destroying the building. However, he is spotted by Angel, who dodges a blast, but it grazes his wings. Before he is finished off, Iceman coats Angel's wings in ice, saving him, enraging Sunfire, who unleashes a powerful force of energy. Barely managing to get a shield up, the fire begins melting it, turning it into steam, knocking Iceman out. With Jean and Cyclops left, he orders her to lift him to the Capitol Dome, and then to take care of Angel while inside, the crowds are panicking due to the fighting. Reluctantly, she does what he wants, and Cyclops hopes he has what it takes to stop Sunfire. Moving to get his revenge, Sunfire unleashes a blast of fire, but is shocked when he sees that it's been stopped by an energy blast and that the building is still standing. Cyclops tries to talk him out of fighting, but fails, and his energy blast barely holds off Sunfire's, but it forces his enemy closer to him. Taking a leap, he misses and is barely caught by Jean, who forces Shiro's head back, but Sunfire isn't deterred and prepares another assault. Shiro's father appears on the building, telling him that he must stop and that he must choose a path to renounce either his uncle or to join him, for he must kill his father to destroy the capital. His uncle, however, tries to choose for him and shoots Sunfire's father, and moving to save the limp form of his dad, also kills his uncle with a blast of fire. Reaching his father, he pleads that Shiro look to the future and not the past as he passes away. The X-Men watch while wishing they could have reached him in time to save him from his hate, while Sunfire mourns the passing of his father. The X-Men arrive home to find Lorna and Alex in costume, urging them to don their own fighting garb, but the teens are confused at the forwardness of the two. The teens grumble as they are exhausted from their recent fights, and seeing that they aren't cooperating, Alex tells Lorna to force them inside, and she manipulates a lamppost to push them forward, which angers Hank, who doesn't like to be treated as an animal, and bends the post. Moving to help his friend, Bobby shoots ice at Alex, who melts it while saying he's got a good reason to get them inside. Hearing his brother say it may be too late, Cyclops tells him that they'll suit up, but that they do so reluctantly. Warren is the last to arrive and inquires about the creature on the screen, and Alex explains that it's a member of an alien race called the Xenox, and how they evolved for only war and conquest, and that they created a weapon that allowed them to transport their entire planet. Bobby, though, is skeptical, but Hank wants to hear the rest. He then tells of how the gravity of Earth will be upset if the planet arrives, and that it is passing Saturn and will arrive in 24 hours. He then shows how a Xenox ship arrived to serve as a homing beacon at the South Pole when the others want proof, and Scott hopes that his brother is telling the truth. Alex says he has a plan, but Warren doesn't believe him when Jean starts crying and saying she can stop pretending. Behind him in the shadows is the one who formulated the plan, Charles Xavier himself. He mentally tells him that he's glad to see them, as Jean informs the others that she had kept the secret of him living since his supposed death. Charles had ordered her silence as he needed no interruptions, and has been in a sub-basement of the mansion as he begins telling how he did it. He tells them that Changeling had been told by a doctor that he had 6 months to live, and how he wanted to do good for once. Sensing he was sincere, he had him take his place. He then led the teens until his death from Grotesque, and that it allowed him time to prepare a counterattack. He then mentally erases their fatigue and has them train harder than they have ever trained before. Meanwhile, at the South Pole, a SHIELD ship investigates the alien craft and launches a series of ships towards it, only for them to all be destroyed when Xavier detects it and realizes that the attack will alert the Xenox and that they must act quickly. Assembling the team for a tense meeting, he informs them that they must attack as harshly as possible and that each second they buy will be invaluable when he sends them on their way, and they fly off in a rocket ship. At the pole, the Xenocs see the attack as futile when they notice a ship has penetrated their shields and move to attack it. Each missile that hits the ship, though, merely sloughs away another layer of defense, allowing its passengers to pierce into the ship itself. Opening the hatch, Iceman looks out and cries a warning to the others. Outside the ship is an alien creature, and before Iceman can freeze it, Cyclops tells him that they must weaken it first as it's too strong. He then unleashes a blast at full strength at the alien. Elsewhere in the ship, the leader of the invasion learns that they are winning and gloats over his imminent victory. Just then, he learns that the intruders of the ship beat their guardian and orders a platoon of soldiers to attack just as Iceman finishes freezing their enemy. The squad arrives and shoots, but misses thanks to an ice wall, and Beast moves in to attack but will soon be overwhelmed. Back on Earth, Xavier can't hold off any longer and tells Lorna to get ready. Using his vast mental energy, he begins searching the entire planet for people of goodwill, carrying the trait of compassion as it's the only weapon against the Xenocs, and immediately rejects many due to their jobs, and others because they are hateful and cruel. Taking all he finds, he joins their consciousness. He tells Lorna to quickly direct his mental emanations to Death Valley and to focus on the X-Men, who are getting desperate as they are losing when Charles tells them to link their minds. Doing so allows a beam of thought to launch directly at the Xenoc ship, where Jean receives them, sends them to Havoc, who empowers them, and launches them into his brother, who shoots them at the ship, and Iceman works to keep their leader cool from the building heat. Knowing they are only filled with determination, they continue the attack, which pains the Xenocs. Sending out feelings of sympathy and mercy, the invaders are unable to handle the foreign emotions. The X-Men continue sending out more of the positive emotions, and the Xenocs, unable to handle the pain of the new feelings, choose to leave the planet as their lust for conquest is deteriorating and become afraid. Signaling retreat, the invasion is ended. Charles congratulates them on their victory as Cyclops begins passing out and Xavier releases the many minds he had gathered to fight with. He then proceeds to pass out as Lorna becomes worried that the effort might have cost him his life. Back with the X-Men, they leave the alien ship just as it explodes, and Jean ponders whether the Earthbound aliens realized what they could have been and didn't want to live as they were. The X-Men return to find Charles Xavier in a coma due to the stress of his actions against the alien invasion and despair over whether he'll recover. Lorna begins crying over the professor's condition as Alex moves to comfort her when Bobby shoots a thread of ice between them for getting so close together. Alex yells at Bobby, who is ready to fight. Cyclops, angered at their bickering, unleashes an optic blast between them to separate the two, and Lorna tells them they should be worrying over Xavier, not who'd win in a fight. Bobby apologizes to Alex, who reciprocates the notion, as he tells him he just has a lot on his mind. That causes Hank to get the idea to use the professor's mind probe that he had finished right before he disappeared, as it's based on articles published by Henry Pym. Hoping that they are correct, Hank activates the machine and Scott warns him to be careful, as Beast is sure the professor would know how to cure himself if he could just communicate. They then see Xavier's head and listen as he says they must get the Hulk before it's too late. Hank is then forced to turn the machine off lest it permanently hurts the professor, and they wonder why he's obsessed with the Hulk whom he's never met. Scott then remembers that Charles once transferred some of his powers to Jean, and she tries to probe his mind. Inside, she begins looking for a way to help, but all she finds is more imagery of the Hulk. Scott wonders if it isn't the Hulk but Bruce Banner they are being asked to find, and Hank agrees. Deciding to find him, he asks his brother to guard Charles, and Lorna decides to stay as well. Jealous, Bobby stays as well while the others leave in their aircraft and are joined by Warren, who wants to join them on their mission. Hours later, they reach the last reported location of the Hulk, Las Vegas, and Warren swoops downward while Scott shouts a warning to be careful but isn't heard. Angel spots the Jade Giant walking through the street with people scattering from his path. Seeing how big he is, he decides to wait for the others when he's spotted, and the Hulk thinks he's being chased again and releases a thunderclap at the young mutant. Seeing Angel is downed, Beast rushes to his rescue and lands a powerful leaping kick at the menace. However, Hulk barely notices the attack and knocks Hank back when Cyclops shouts that they don't want to fight but to just ask a few questions. Thinking it another trick, Hulk picks up a lamppost and advances on them, forcing Cyclops to unleash an optic blast. The Hulk, though, is merely slowed but continues forward to their amazement, and Jean tries her mental abilities. She unleashes mental pressure under the Hulk's head, slowing him and eventually tossing him through a brick wall. They then see him begin to transform back into Bruce and inform him that they are the X-Men and have questions for him. They ask if he's ever heard of Xavier, but he hasn't, when Beast and Angel tell them they need to hurry as they look behind themselves. The army is there, being led by Major Talbot. Cyclops tells them that they need Bruce to save Charles Xavier when Bruce suddenly remembers the name and how they talked of using gamma-ray treatments for mental exhaustion and that he created a device due to it and the teens want him to take him there. Talbot, however, ignores them and orders the capture of Bruce. Bruce begs him to wait, otherwise Xavier will die when his head starts throbbing and he transforms into the Hulk, who doesn't care whether the professor dies or not. Hulk then leaps away and the X-Men decide to move quick to follow before the army decides to go after them instead. Gathering into their ship, they take off and luckily manage to find the Hulk out in the desert before he leaps again. Hulk sees them and moves toward the cliff, but when the X-Men land, he's already maneuvered to the top and is holding a giant rock. Angel moves to have him throw the rock towards him, but is ignored as Hulk tosses it at the ones on the ground. Cyclops shoots it while Jean blocks the debris, and Beast moves to initiate a plan of his own. Climbing up the side of the mountain, he sneaks up behind the Hulk, and moving quickly, delivers a powerful kick sending the Green Giant over the edge. Scott and Jean barely move out of the way as Hulk lands and becomes buried in the earth. Beast, though, is worried that he might have overdone it and killed Hulk if he's reverted to Banner when the rubble begins shaking. Furious, Hulk emerges and the teens are stunned by what's behind him. They see Banner's secret lab through a hole in the cliff. Cyclops shouts for Warren to enter Bruce's lab to get the device, and upon hearing his alter ego's name, Hulk becomes more angered and moves to attack. Cyclops shoots an optic blast at him while telling Jean to attack him mentally again, but Hulk, hearing this, smashes the ground, causing a rupture to appear, knocking the teens off balance. Hank manages to grab the two while hanging from a ladder attached to the ship when Angel appears from the lab with the machine, and Hulk is simply glad to see them leaving. Hours later, they return home and prepare to use the device on Xavier. Activating the device, gamma rays bombard Charles's mind and the X-Men pray. They see him awaken and listen to him as he congratulates them for figuring out their only clue. He then promises a swift recovery as the X-Men have a world to protect and defend.